Alright, here's an update on my M1 steam turbine built from AHM and Rivarossi parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through what I've done. That is a homemade shell made out of Lexan. I downloaded an image of a train that looked, flat. I used a program and basically traced it out. After I sized the image to the actual size of the locomotive, I traced it out and plotted the pieces out of very thin Lexan. The plotter cuts the Lexan, it scores it, and then you snap it. It's pretty simple. So you've already seen some of this video as far as what the shell looked like, and then I primed it, and then I built the shell. And then I used that same image that I got off the web and I cleaned it up and added a ton of orange. I stole the color from it. I don't know if it's I've seen pictures where it's almost yellow. The same locomotive is almost yellow. I thought it was ugly, so I used the color that I thought it should be. Either way, I don't care. So I printed it on wrap material and I wrapped this. Obviously it's in pieces. There's no way to wrap an object this small with one piece of vinyl. Nothing would ever line up. So in the last video I had an issue with some of this stuff pulling out because it was tucked in, and the vinyl naturally wants to shrink. So what I did was I cut it, pushed it in place, and then laid orange back over it, so it's much cleaner. The bodywork is a little horrible, but yeah, it's homemade. So it kind of looks cartoony if you stare at it too long, because it's not 3D. It's flat. The only thing that you can feel is the ridges and everything, and the detail that I added into the roof here. I put the raised roof hatches in there. There's some other detail that it needs, but I didn't put it in there. I've plotted that out of vinyl after the fact and popped it on there. I cleared over it. There's like maybe 7 thin layers of clear on that over this locomotive so the color won't rub out. I added the doors to the front where the compressors are mounted. I've put a nose on here. That is actually, I really didn't want to cut this up because it was a nice shell, but it was a Model Power Roco. I chopped the shell. I cut the nose off of that. So be it. I'll use this. I'll steal the lens out of the front when I put a headlight in. So that's what it looks like. Headlight's going to go there. There's going to be marker lights in the corners here, and class lights, or whatever you call them. And a road number. Road number that's going to go on there. Obviously these windows are fake. They're just printed. And I built the tender, finally. That's what the tender looks like. And I'm going to walk you through what I did to make that. Now these have ridges on it. I got to be careful because I painted and cleared this not too long ago. So I used a don't remember what model it was. Maybe I can't remember. Anyway, I had an extra one. I had a full set and one extra one, so I cut the roof out of it. You can see it's got the ridges in it. So I chopped that. I'll save this plastic because you never know when you're going to need it for something else. So I cut the roof out, and I just did it by images, pictures that I've had. This is a piece of Lexan. These are supposed to be doors that open up that have something in them. I have no idea. Just simulation, they don't open. This is a piece of Lexan. This here, the trucks and everything, the bottom half of this, are from a Rivarossi New York Central. Used to look like that. And what I've done is I flip-flopped the trucks so they're not as close. I cut out the piece that used to hang down. I actually used it on this train, on the locomotive. We'll get to that. I still got to put a real coupler on there. There's a horn hook on there. That's how old this thing is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the camera here and use my Schweppes ginger ale so I can show you. Oh, sorry about that. What I can show you here, I'll take this off. And now in the back, there is that thing that's on the right hand side that's gray. I painted it. That's a clip. And what I do is, to get this apart, slide the shell forward and then it'll come off like that. So there's a clip here and one in the front, and it meets a piece in the front that it hooks into. I don't know if you can see that right there. And then there's a hole cut in the back of this. Still have to put the ladder back here and a couple other, I don't know what it is. This big giant wheel looks like a steering wheel that goes back there. It's probably for the brakes. This again is wrap material. I stole the image off the interweb, sized it to the size I needed, and printed it. And I cleared over it so the color can't run. The color won't come off. Now when you use canned clear, you have to be very careful when you clear something that's printed. You have to very lightly skim it 2 or 3 times, just a dusting, and then another dusting, and another dusting, and let that dry, or 10-15 minutes, and then you can load it up with clear. If you try to do it too much, it'll cause the color to run, especially if you're using clear that has lacquer in it. So anyway, this tender here is completely homemade. There's nothing from Rivarossi. The only thing I used was the roof from the Santa Fe passenger car. And the back pieces I chopped off are actually in here. I used those first to get the right thickness, width, and make sure it was square. I glued them in with baking soda and Krazy glue, and then I cut myself Lexan to get a flat surface. So that's how we did that. Now let me put this back together. So put it back together, we slide the front fork in a little bit, then drop the back, and then push it in, and that's it. I do have to make like a release clip or something, so it just can't come apart if you push on it. I painted the trucks. Oh, one more thing. I dremelled this out because the tender needed to be 6.25 inches long. What I started with was maybe 5 3/4, maybe, the Rivarossi tender. So I dremelled this out, added 1/2 inch on either end. I moved this backwards. I moved this backwards to make it longer. Now I cut this piece off, and we put that, I don't even know what it's for. I think it's some sort of dump. Opens up and it dumps whatever's inside of it, the tender out. Well, that's actually in the locomotive now, in the bottom of the locomotive. We'll get there in a minute. So anyway, so the stripes and everything line up like they're supposed to. And these wheels are going to be hooked up. Right now there's nothing hooked up to this, but this is actually going to help supply power to the locomotive. Not that it needs it, but the more the merrier. So as far as the shell goes on the locomotive, right now it's just sitting on top of it. There's a couple feet that hold it in place. I don't know if it has to be slid forward or back, so it's not screwed on, but it comes off. Last time you may have saw this looked like a boat frame. It had all walls in there. Well, once everything was completely cured and I knew this wasn't going to twist, I cut it all out. So I drummeled all that out very carefully. I added 2 little feet right here for it to sit on top of the frame. Once I knew exactly how high it was going to be, that was a neat trick. And then I did one in the back that sits across this section right here. Now eventually I'm going to put a tab or something on it so it locks into place, or I may just drill a hole and have a screw here and then 2 little screws that go from here to here on the front. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. Right now the weight is just taped in. I probably want to heat this lead up and so it's longer, same amount of weight but longer, so the train's not top heavy. I had to grind this down with the belt sander a little bit so it would fit inside the shell. Now this black inside the shell is not paint, it's liquid urethane. Once you put like 3 or 4 coats on this, you let it dry 15-20 minutes, you do another coat, it kind of dries like glue, and it actually adds some strength to it if it's thick enough. So I always do that in the inside of my trains. It does add a little bit of strength to it. So that's that. And this was the nose. I cut this all out off of this. I tipped it upside down. I put some masking tape on a piece of Lexan, flipped it upside down, used the pen, drew out the inside, and then left a little tab coming off the back about 3/8 of an inch long. And then I cut it out with a razor blade and snapped it. Now, this is glued to metal. There's a hole in the metal. I scraped the metal down, scraped the plastic down, super glued it. Once it was pretty much dry, I put super glue in the hole in the metal and then put baking soda in there and then glued over it. So it can't come off. Even if the glue was to snap free from the metal, because the baking soda is in the hole and it's glued to the plastic, it physically can't come off. I'd have to break it to get it off. I had to tweak the bar a little bit to get the right height. I may have to shave the bottom. It may be on my layout, there may be some spots of height where the track goes up that this may scrape, but see how it's got a little bit of rigidity to it, it moves up and down, so if it does hit something, it's not going to break anything. Alright, I'm going to put the shell back on so I can show you what this thing does how it looks when we go through a corner. Alright, so here we go. I'm pretty happy with what I've come up with so far. That's basically where the shell has to sit. I'm going to put the tender on there. And that's what she looks like. She runs really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if we can do this here. I'm going to bend the track, and you can see what's going on with the nose. All right, so we're gonna do that. I'm gonna use my ginger ale to hold the camera because I don't own a tripod. All right, see what's happening when I'm when I'm bending this track. Now that would be a very, very steep turn. That right there is that's more than an 18-degree turn radius right there. Now it looks horrible in that corner. I mean, look at the nose. But that's just to prove to you that this thing will run on an 18-degree radius turn. It doesn't look any worse than the MTH does, and the O scale. I don't know if anybody's watched any videos of the O scale MTH or whatever brand it is, but that thing looks hideous in the corners. So I taped one end of the track there so I can use my camera and bend this at the same time. So that's what it looks like when it goes through a turn. The front end is articulated. Now, obviously, that would be straight, pretty much. And as it goes through the corner, I mean that's more than an 18-degree bend right there. I mean 18 radius, and it's making it. That is sick. The drivetrain has that much movement on it. That's because when I was basically engineering this thing out in my head, I figured out what I needed to do to make it run on a small layout. My layout, as shitty as it is not that small. So that's what the tender looks like in the back. It's going to need some lights. It's going to need, I think there's a ladder back here too. Not sure. It's going to need a reverse light, red lights on the side and right here, which I'm going to do. I don't think I'm going to add DCC in this thing because if I do, I'm going to want sound, and nobody really has a good DCC decoder that I know of that has a steam turbine. The steam turbine locomotive that I made, I used two decoders, one steam and one diesel, and I turned the rumble all the way down, and I used the dynamic brake. Sounds like a dyno, which kind of sounds like a turbine. So I used that for the sound, and I turned the chuff down, but I left all the other steam sounds going. It's just a pain in the neck to do it. I don't know. We'll see. But I am going to add lights. Now I'm going to go and grab a locomotive so I can show you what I did to the AHM locomotive. Be back in 2 seconds. Alright, so when I built this drivetrain, I built the drivetrain for the M1. I used a AHM similar to this. It wasn't this exact model. This one here is, I believe, ST40. The locomotive that I used, I can't remember which model it was. All I can tell you is that these wheels were not evenly spaced out. Two of them were closer, these two were closer together, and then this one had a big space between here. And what I did was I left the two that were close, together, I took this cap off, I cut this, and I moved the rear set forward so the space would be the same. So basically it would look like this, even space. And then using another locomotive pieces parts, I added a set of wheels in front of this. Now it would have been easier and probably better for the train to have them just added here, like I did on the homemade DD40 that I made. The problem with that is where the gearbox was on this truck was in the middle of the two front, it was it's just like this one here, you can see in there, right? See where the gearbox is, you can see it. Okay, so now if I had added another set of wheels back here, it would have, the movement on the train would have been limited because it would have been pivoting more on the ass end here. So what would have happened was when this was going through the corners, this truck would have been sticking way out here, and it would have been, would have looked horrible. So I made sure that I was in the center. And you can see that, well, you probably can't. We'll pull the cover off. You can see where it is in the cover. Okay? So I added a set in front and the set in the back. And then I modified the whole truck area, the truck cover, to fit on there. Both of them are done in the exact same way. This one can fit on that one can fit on this one. And then this section here was added. I cut it right in half. And this piece is from a Rivarossi, a real Rivarossi, not a Yugoslavia Rivarossi. And then this one is the AHM, and I did the same in the back here. Now these trucks are off the New York Central, possibly, Rivarossi. Same with this. And then I just made these covers. I got these from another locomotive and shaved them down and bonded them to that. And then this rear truck here, we went over this before, is from a passenger car truck. It used to have 3 axles. I modified it so I'm in the center of both wheels. And I lost the third set because I don't need it. And then where the coupling, the horn hook went, is the bar. I cut the bar, I drilled a hole in it, I put it onto where the horn hook coupler used to be, and used a piece of welding wire and bent it around the tab so that this can't come off, and it has enough movement so when it goes through the corners it can move. So that's pretty much it. I was going to take it for a test ride tonight, but it's getting late, and I just wanted to give you an update on what the thing looks like. The only thing I'm worried about taking it for a test ride is there's one section of my track going up the 3.5% grade. When it takes that left-hand turn heading towards the bridge, the track is pretty close to the wall. And I don't know, I think that's a 33, might be a 35 radius. I don't know if the nose, when it comes off that corner like this, if the nose is going to hit the wall, because the wall is really close. But I mean, this thing articulates really nicely, to say the least. You can see the wire that I have soldered on that truck to help give it power. Did the same thing here. I did the same thing on this back truck. So it's got plenty of pickup. So that's that. Leave a comment, let me know what you think so far. Have a great night. And thank you very much for watching.